hold on to the roof because the NBA playoffs have been really kicking it. John, I think you and I can agree that the first round has been really insane for the most part, and with more games to come too, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Even though there's no fans and everyone's stuck in the bubble, the games were extremely competitive. I was really impressed by the players who were able to compose themselves, and it resulted in some really great games. Can't wait to break it all down.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. All right. Commencing episode 8.
Sergeant George, online.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside the Sergeant's Lab. It's great to be back here once again for the podcast series. Sorry, we've been out for a very long while. We've been, as you can see from the YouTube channel, we've been doing a lot more in terms of gaming on Twitch. As you can see, link in the description if you guys want to check both of John and I's Twitch channels, and we've been doing a lot more sports related stuff. John has been talking about a lot in terms of, like, for example, Jamal Murray going off and some of his predictions for the awards, where it actually just happened as well. So we're back here once again for the podcast series, and if you guys like what you're hearing, we're talking about the NBA playoffs as we go along. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment as much as possible, because we want to keep this channel going for a long time to come. So make sure to drop the like, make sure to subscribe, and all that good stuff. So John, we are back here once again. Good to see you, but once again here for the podcast series.
Yeah, man, it's exciting to be back. I've been waiting and waiting. I'm glad, we're finally back here to be talking some actual sports, actual content stuff, with a bunch of predictions. Games been happening, with basketball and obviously with baseball. We got football coming up. So it's really good that, we're getting this sort of normalcy back in our lives and what's been a pretty crazy past 6 months.
Yeah, you can tell me. You don't have to tell me twice, because honestly, I think for the most part, and I'm pretty sure people can agree with me. You and I can agree with me with this, that sports was the best thing that can happen for the world, for basically the world right now. To be honest with you.
Yeah, no, man, it's been great, and especially on the basketball front, the players they've been doing their job of not only spreading social awareness but also staying safe as well. I believe there haven't been any COVID cases in the bubble since early August, and we're already in September now. So that's a really good sign to see the players are taking this seriously. And also, obviously, can't really say the same on the baseball front. We'll see what happens with football. But, it's just, we just need sports in lives. Now that sports is back, like I said, it's a sort of normalcy that's back now. So it's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And even I remember when I went to I'm just gonna throw back the little story here. You and I went to this outlet before by Woodbury, up the Woodbury outlets up in upstate New York, and I actually got this in Under Armour, and this is through together is like together stronger. Together this is like through this together. And we all need to know that sport, it's just bigger than sports, but then again, you also have to be together in these kinds of times. So yeah, let's continue on with the NBA playoffs, but before we do that, I want to get your initial reactions on how the bubble actually was commenced. We had the eight games that happened before the playoffs actually started. So what was your original reaction? How did the NBA handle the bubble situation in the first place? How did they handle the 8 games? And then, when the 8 games commenced, what was the most notable team that really pushed themselves into the bubble?
Well, first, I want to shout out Adam Silver, because he went through hell and high water. Like, he had to make so many sacrifices to make this work. So the fact that he was able to put it all together and see it all come to fruition, and we see how it's been working, like, shout out to him for that, because I can't even imagine what he had to go through in order to make everything possible. Now, in terms of my general reactions, I was honestly surprised. Like, when the bubble first started, I was like, okay, this is kind of new. It's gonna take some getting used to. But then as the games went on, I was like, I noticed the games were getting really competitive, especially. I don't know if you remember, like that very first night back in late July when we had the Jazz, Pelicans, and Lakers, Clippers. That was a really competitive reopening night, and the rest of the games just. I remember that Friday were competitive as well. And as I kept watching each game every day, like the games were just really good. They were really competitive. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like I can get used to this ball thing. So I started watching the games more and more. And I was just impressed with, how teams were playing, how the games were competitive, all the upsets that was going on. Well, I don't know if you can call them upsets, but just the competitive play was just so much better. Like, I don't know, again, like, I don't know if it was just due to just maybe guys had a lot of time off and they were pretty much fresh. I guess that's part of it, but just like the play was just so much better. And I know that some players said that part is because like the shooting background, because I know that players, they have a hard time shooting in arenas because of the way it's set up. But like you notice that like a lot of guys were playing much better in the ball, especially shooters as well. As like the Portland Trail Blazers, they have a bunch of shooters. A lot of guys, the stats were just crazy in the bubble just because of how, it's like you're shooting like in a high school gym. Like high school gym. You think about it, right? Like high school, like especially here in New York, a lot of high school gyms are pretty small. So it's basically like the same. Now imagine you're a professional athlete where it's literally your job to be good at the game you play, especially at the sport of basketball, and you're shooting in a high school gym. That's pretty much what it was for these guys, and that's why, it was really great to see the competition.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the amount of competitive games that were actually happening, as you mentioned, like I remember, I mean, obviously we can recollect one of the two big upsets from one team, and that was the Brooklyn Nets upsetting Milwaukee and the Clippers. So that was an interesting. So that was an interesting games to watch. And now, just want to throw it out there. Steve Nash is now the head coach for the Brooklyn Nets, which is, I say, kind of questionable, to be honest, because they actually did have a good season, but then again, they didn't have Kyrie, they didn't have KD. So I want to see how next season will go. But aside from that, the one team that we obviously want to mention before we go right into the first round of the playoffs is the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, who technically in the bubble were not even close to contention with the 8th seed as of yet. They had a very good chance of being in that play-in tournament, if it had not been for the Portland trade with Blazers and Damian Lillard. And then Carmelo Anthony was also bringing in the mix and CJ McCollum. So the problem was they put their whole hearts into it. Devin Booker averaged over 30 points a game throughout that eight game span, and still missed out on the playoffs because of their mediocre to somewhat lackluster regular season before coming into the bubble. So that's what really held them back. Yeah, you won 8 games straight, but the problem was that your regular season record just couldn't hold up. Even though you went perfect in the bubble, you had to rely on players on other teams losing within that mix to actually get yourself into playoff contention.
Yeah, absolutely. For Phoenix, it must be frustrating. Obviously, if you're a Phoenix Suns fan, you're happy with how the team performed, but at the same time, you must be frustrated as well, because now you're thinking back. You can't help but think back on what could have been. At the start of the season, DeAndre Ayton gets suspended for 25 games, and that really hurt them early on. And then even when DeAndre Ayton came back, they were still struggling to win games or put a consistent stretch of competitive games together. So as a Suns fan, you have to really frustrated because of that, because this team showed that when they buy into the system that Coach Monty Williams is trying to have them do to be successful, that they can have success. Because I think overall they won 12-0 in the bubble. I think they won all 4 of their preseason games as well. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Pretty much they went undefeated in the bubble, and they're thinking about, okay, like we want to see this for next season. Especially, I imagine Devin Booker. Because Devin Booker, I remember, I believe it was last year at the end of last season. He said, "I'm sick and tired of not making the playoffs," and he came a Karis LeVert missed jump shot away from finally breaking that streak. So obviously the Suns have a lot of decisions they have to make over this offseason because they have to take this momentum going into next season. You can't have this perfect bubble and then have the same results at least for the early portion of next season.
Absolutely, because we already know how terrible their GM staff is. To be honest with you, they've been terrible for God knows how long, and I would love to see Devin Booker be successful because he's been under the radar throughout his entire career. The only reason why he actually got into the All-Star game this season was because I don't know who got injured, but I know one person got injured. I think it was like Damian Lillard, wasn't it? Or somebody.
I believe so. I think it was either Lillard or someone. Yeah, Devin Booker should have been an All-Star game, like regardless. So go on.
Absolutely, but yeah, the one thing I want to know, the one thing I don't know before after this, we'll go right into the first round, is what does the team actually need? Do they need to pick somebody up in the draft because they have the 10th pick in this coming draft, which is happening next month on the 16th, October 16th, or do they need do they just need to real a whole major overhaul in their general management? Do they need a new coach? Do they need to trade for an all-star? What does this team need to be successful and actually make a run for the playoffs?
Well, to answer your first question, here's what they need to do in the draft. In my opinion, in the draft, they either need a shooting guard or a big man that can shoot the ball. Because you already had Devin Booker, who's going to be the ball handler most of the time. So you want to have a shooter at the 2 spot who can complement them, or you can have a shooter at the 4 spot who can be either a spot up shooter or he's at least has some athleticism. Because you already have DeAndre Ayton at the 5, so DeAndre Ayton's gonna be your franchise center for this upcoming decade. And DeAndre Ayton, we saw he can shoot too. He's been working on shooting and he shot relatively well in the bubble from outside. So I'm expecting DeAndre Ayton to take more outside shots for next season. So in terms of the draft, you have that. Now in terms of what else they can do, Monty Williams is very well respected in the NBA. So obviously the Suns will be really dumb to fire him unless you're Sacramento Kings, of course. In terms of the management, I don't know, because James Jones, who's a general manager, he's also very well respected throughout the league. He played on the Miami Heat with LeBron and through on those Miami Heat teams back in the early part of this decade. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But in terms of what they can do in terms of the rest of the roster, they need to do something about Kelly Oubre, because Oubre actually didn't come into the bubble because he wanted to rehab his knee. Remember, Oubre is a good player, but you saw other guys such as Mikal Bridges and Dario Saric. They really stepped up their game. Oh, and Cameron Johnson, let's not forget about him. They really stepped up their game in the bubble. I feel like part is because Kelly Oubre wasn't there taking shots away from them. So I think that's what they have to do.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. There is one thing I would switch up. I would say from my own perspective is that Phoenix, in terms of I would just say just from the draft perspective, if they got somebody in the draft, obviously they get the top picks in the draft of LaMelo Ball or Anthony Edwards or anything like that. They can't even get Onyeka Nkumo or James Wiseman. So those picks are out of the picture. So those players are out of the picture. My thing is that is Ricky Rubio your true number one point guard that's going to be starting? Obviously, he's going to be the starting point guard. Been the starting point guard for this season when they traded for him. But is he going to be really the number one ball handler / passer for the team? I don't think so. I feel like they should probably get a point guard in the draft. And I also agree with you with that foreman position as well. If they could really try to stretch the floor and complement also with the shooting of Dario Saric, that would be pretty good. They also have Frank. Also, we have to remember they also have Frank Kaminsky as well. So I would like to see them at least get either a Killian Hayes or Tyrese Halliburton or something like that. I think Tyrese Halliburton will probably be the better fit for them, but because obviously Cole Anthony cannot fit with that because he's more of a scoring point guard, and you already have scoring with Devin Booker. So you need someone to complement him, so you could be that 1-2 punch with Devin Booker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I would not. Okay, this is probably like a very hot take, but I will not be surprised if the Suns look to trade either Rubio, Oubre, or Kaminsky, either on draft night or probably a day or two beforehand, or one of those top picks. The only reason I'm saying that is because let's say the Suns stay with, they have the 10th pick. Let's say they stick with that pick and use it to draft either a shooter or a forward who can shoot. Then in that case, you have Rubio. Rubio is a starting point guard in this league, so I can't really. Same thing with Oubre as well. So I don't really see those guys going to the bench for next season. So I had the younger guys like McCall Bridges, Cameron Johnson, or Dario Saric can step up and they start in a lap, or they move up more in the rotation. So So I don't know if it's going to happen. I will not be surprised if it doesn't happen, but I won't be surprised if it does happen as well, especially if the Suns, again, like I said, if they want to make a big splash and if they want to keep on this momentum for next season.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good prediction. Imagine if they put their 10th pick along with those three guys in one package and see if they can either go up in the draft or probably even get like somewhat of a star player. Because obviously, if you get rid of all those three, that's technically a big package that it can actually get like somewhat of a decent play of a really good player, or even maybe potentially a star player if they add that 10th pick in this year's draft. So we'll see. Hopefully the Phoenix Suns can figure that out for next season as well. So let's go right into the first round of the NBA playoffs. And man, wow! Like, I'm not gonna lie, some of these games that happened in the first round were absolutely amazing. Like, very competitive, except for probably like maybe one or two series. So we're gonna actually rank it from best to worst, starting with, what do you think, John?
I don't know. I mean, I'll give you it's the 3C and the 6C in the West. Involving two young point guards who only dropped 50 points in multiple games. So it's the Nuggets and Jazz for those who haven't figured it out by now.
Yeah. So we'll go right into obviously the worst one, which was, the Raptors, which was the Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think we're going to really go too much on that. The Brooklyn Nets just couldn't do any. Obviously, for what we already know, the Brooklyn Nets couldn't really do too much. Kyrie opted out to not going into the bubble. Obviously, KD announced prior to the playoffs that he was not going to come back. So they had to rely on Caris LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and the Fro to literally carry that team, and obviously it didn't plan out that well, and the Raptors were just too stacked.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the Nets, though, the Nets are also another team like the Suns where they have some major decisions they're going to have to make over the offseason, because Caris LeVert, he balled out. Like, he played extremely well, and he's a point guard. So now what's going to happen is you're probably going to have Kyrie and Caris LeVert as your backcourt for next season. They're going to have KD at the 3, and then you're already going to have Jarrett Allen at the 5. So yeah, the Nets have some decisions they have to make. Another guy who really stepped up for them in the bubble was Timothy Luau Cabral. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, because I know he's from Brazil. he's an excellent shooter for them. I really hope that they keep him and they give him some major minutes off the bench next season, because he's shown that he can score the ball in a hurry, especially from the outside. I think that if you put him, make him as the sixth man, or maybe even see if you can sneak him to the starting lineup and just have him be your main 3-and-D guy, I think he can be really well. He can play really well for them. Another guy who I really liked for them was Chris Chiozza. He's kind of like on the shorter side in terms of point guards, but I think he was pretty aggressive. He played with a chip on his shoulder, so I like him. Joe Harris, he shot the ball really well, and also Tyler Johnson. Like I was watching. I don't know if I was watching the Nets games pretty closely. Tyler Johnson made some shots that you'd never think. Tyler Johnson was making step back threes like he was James Harden. He was making like pull up mid range jumpers from like the baseline and they're falling out of bounds. I'm like, what is? I'm like, Tyler Johnson. Like, am I watching Tyler Johnson or I'm watching James Harden? Like, Jesus. But yeah, the Nets. I mean, they had some pieces, but obviously the Toronto Raptors. You have Pascal Siakam was dropping 20 and 10 every game. Kyle Lowry played pretty well, but I know he injured himself. I think in Game 4, but obviously he's okay now. Fred Van Vliet, he balled out. The Nets just could not stop him. He was hitting threes. He was just driving inside. They just could not stop him. So I think, yeah, overall the Raptors were just the better team, but I do like the direction the Nets are heading in for next season.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the Nets will do. That they're in a way bigger position, because you're also dealing with the fact that you have two really big all-stars in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, two players who have multiple all-stars, also all-star appearances, and are NBA champions. So that's gonna be a very interesting. It's gonna be a very interesting off season. Now that especially that you have Steve Nash as your head coach. I actually want to give you before we switch to the next series, what's your take on the Nets signing Steve Nash?
Personally, I don't like it. I think it's a PR move, because for those who may not know, Steve Nash was actually the player development coach for the Warriors when KD was there. And I think he he knows KD well. He knows what type of person he is. So he'll be able to manage KD's ego well. I feel like this is probably a KD/Kyrie head coaching move. So we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, honestly, we're in an era now where former players, they're starting to get into coaching now more days. I know Chauncey Billups now, he wants to get into coaching as well. So personally, I don't like it, but this is Steve Nash. We're talking about one of the greatest point guards of all time. He's not like, unlike Jason Kidd, I actually believe Steve Nash will succeed as a head. Unlike Jason Kidd, I believe Steve Nash will succeed as a head coach in today's NBA. So I'm excited to see what happens. I think he's the right coach for them, but I think it's a PR move, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I kind of believe that too, but I also, I would say my take on this is that with the way Steve Nash is and the way his personality is, I think he could definitely. I believe he's fit for. I think he believe for his personality, he's a good fit for a head coach position. The only thing is that, if he can handle like a 14-man roster is the bigger question. So yeah, that is also transitioning from player perspective to now having a head coach perspective. Obviously, we've seen that with a lot of with head coaches from past years on already, and they have been most of them have been pretty successful, like Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers, and some of these other coaches around the league. So the other thing I would say is that I feel like Steve Nash is going to probably be like the Steve Kerr 2.0. I told one of my friends about this because of the way, because he's Steve Nash was always respected in the league. He was like, no matter where he went, from Dallas to the Lakers to Phoenix, and obviously where he was actually in his prime days, when he won those 2-time MVPs. So I think he's gonna be. I think he'll fit. I hopefully he could fit in with the next organization. So let's move on right in to the next year. To the next series, the Heat versus the Pacers. Now I want to know. Like if the so you said so you were actually contemplating this list, and we put the Heat in the Pacers technically I believe one, two, three, 4, 5, 6. So it's like the seventh worst series. Now, obviously, the Pacers had a lot of like mix and juggles that they had to go with, but Bogdanovich didn't play obviously because he had a season ending injury, and he couldn't make the bubble. Victor Oladipo was kind of basically inconsistent for the throughout the entire bubble, even though he did average 17 points per game on someone efficiency from the field. But I don't know. What did you think about this series?
Well, for me, the reason why I ranked this series so low is because honestly, I feel like even though I didn't expect it to end in a sweep, I thought this series would probably go 5 or maybe even 6 games. But I just knew that the Heat were the better team, and I just didn't see how the Pacers could win this series without Sabonis and without Bogdanovich for them. So I know that I believe Sabonis was actually on his way back to the bubble for the series, but obviously they ended up getting swept. Because I believe if he came back, he would have been eligible to play in Game 5 and possibly Game 6. So I mean, Oladipo played well, but obviously, the rest of the team just couldn't pick it up offensively. They didn't get enough offensive production from the rest of the roster, especially T.J. Warren. T.J. Warren did not have a good series. Now, obviously, part of it was because he played so well in during the 8 seeding game, so he was going to be a focal point of the Heat's game plan. But still, because they were honing on him, Oladipo was able to do what he wanted, but the rest of the roster just couldn't step up. Now, in terms of the Heat, though, they did their job of taking care of business in this series thanks to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler played really well. He was extremely aggressive. He was attacking the paint and either getting to the free throw line a lot, or Jimmy Butler, he's an underrated finisher around the rim as well. And also the Heat have a lot of shooting with Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Adebayo. He's starting to emerge as, in my opinion, a better version of Draymond Green, because Adebayo has a consistent jump shot. He's great at crashing the boards, and he's really good at finding open teammates. I really like Bam Adebayo and how much he's progressed in such a quick time span as well. Because I remember watching him at Kentucky. I knew he was good in college, but I didn't sense him being this good so early, so quickly in the NBA. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think and obviously being one of the top voting in most improved player of the year, and obviously we know that Brandon Ingram received that award, and obviously he rightfully deserved that. But going back to the series, obviously I think the number one thing that we can say before we move on to the next one is that Jimmy Butler absolutely locked down T.J. Warren after T.J. Warren was just absolutely, basically quote unquote, was named the somewhat MVP of the bubble. I mean, obviously, I don't think that was true. They gave that MVP. I think the Damian Lillard. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was Lillard.
Yeah, so he was in contention for getting that MVP voting, but then giving that MVP, that bubble MVP. But obviously, he didn't really show up towards actually the end of the regular season in the bubble, and couldn't show up in the playoffs. He was too inconsistent. Jimmy Butler actually locked him up. So that was the end of that series, of that sweep. So let's move right on to the Bucks and the Magic, which was on number 6. And obviously, there's one thing in this series that you should definitely know, obviously, already. Even though the Magic took one game out of this series, there is no way in God knows hell that the Orlando Magic can beat Giannis. There's no way.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say is that people are probably surprised why I have this series like in the middle of the pack. I watched 4 out of the 5 games in this series, and believe it or not, the Magic were extremely competitive in all 5 games. Even though the Bucks won, I believe the Bucks won all 4 games by double digits because the Magic won game 1 and then the Bucks won 4 straight. Even though the Bucks won all 4 games by double digits, the Magic were extremely competitive. It's just again like I wasn't obviously me and everyone else was not expecting the Magic to beat the Bucks, but one thing I wanted to see was how competitive the Magic would be in this series, and they were competitive. They did what they needed to do. Nikola Vucevic, he played pretty well, at least in the early part of the series, because then the latter part of the series, the Bucks really made sure to lock him down offensively. DJ Augustine, he's been really good in spot starts for them. Markel Fultz, he played well. One guy
despite having a broken jumper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, a couple of guys who really surprised me for the Magic was Wesley Iwundu and James Ennis. Now, for those who may not know who Wesley Iwundu was, he pretty much played because Jonathan Isaac tore his ACL, and so he's pretty much getting like major minutes off the bench for them. But he did a really good job of, he was really extremely active on defense, and on offensively he was really good at attacking the basket. He may not have scored a whole lot, but he was doing a good job of being part of the Magic's game plan, which for them was attack the Bucks defense, especially in the paint, but then kick it out to shooters. Because those who may not know the Bucks game plan, the Bucks they sell hard on giving up threes. They will pack the paint. They do not like giving up easy buckets in the paint. So they will pack the paint, and they are willing to give threes. That's why we're going to talk about Laird. That's the reason why the Heat have won 2 straight games against them early on. Now, in terms of the Bucks they eventually got into their rhythm. Obviously part of it was because Giannis just started taking over. But the Bucks did an excellent job of getting out in transition against the Magic, because the Magic weren't really doing a good job of stopping the Bucks in transition. So then you have Giannis with free roam to the basket. Either it's again easy dunk, or he can kick it out to the shooters. Because that's another reason why the Bucks have been such an excellent team, because they've added, in my opinion, I think they have more shooting this year than they did from last year's team.
Oh yeah, for sure, and then definitely about that with also the additions of Kyle Korver, and then with the decency of Pat Connaughton as well. I think with that team, and also you have Brook Lopez, who can stretch the floor also. So you have all those guys, and then Giannis just attacking the paint like crazy. I mean, there's just no way you can in the Magic. No, it was just no way the Magic could have won that game. So let's go right into a very interesting one that you put here as well, right in the middle of the pack. Well, technically in the middle of the pack, the Lakers and the Blazers. So obviously, there wasn't really a big chance that the Lakers would have botched this. There was a big chance that the Lakers would have botched this series, but obviously we already know from Worlds Beyond Yonder, like Damian Lillard just went completely off and tried to backpack carry this team, and he did that rightfully so, from shooting from way beyond the arc and just shooting. Obviously, his shooting was just absolutely on point, like crazy.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm gonna give the Blazers a ton of credit. I know that I've seen like what media outlets have been saying. I know media outlets have been bashing them because, like, oh well, they're the 8th seed. They had no chance to beat the Lakers anyway. Obviously, I knew they weren't gonna beat the Lakers, but you have to give them credit when credit is due. They came into the bubble as one of the outside teams looking in. They barely got in. They did what they had to do. They won 6 or 8 games. and then they won the playing game against the Grizzlies, and then they upset the Lakers in game one. Now, the reason why I had this in the middle of the middle of the pack is because only two, in my opinion, 2 of the 5 games were competitive. That was games 1 and game 3. Games 2, 4, and 5 are pretty much blowouts. But obviously, Lillard, he played well in game 1. Now I know that in game 2, I believe was when he dislocated his finger. It was in game 2 when he dislocated his finger, and that's why in games 3 to 5 he didn't really play that well. At least his shooting was down. But I think I give the Blazers a lot of credit. They came in on the outside looking in. They did what they needed to do, and I think they were able to do a good job as well as they can in terms of competing with the Lakers. Now, in terms of the series itself, I'm surprised there's only 5 games, because I know most people thought the Lakers were going to sweep them or win 5 games. I actually thought the series was going to go 6 games. I thought it'd be more competitive. I think for me the deciding factor was game 4, because game 4 was, I believe that was when the Lakers, like, they honored Kobe. I believe game 4 was on Kobe Day regardless, and the Lakers just came and they just punched the Blazers in the mouth in that series. Otherwise, the first 3 games were pretty competitive. I thought, okay, game 3. Okay, for me, my mindset was, okay, game 3 was close. The Lakers barely scraped it out. Game 4, the Blazers are going to come more motivated. Even though it's Kobe Day, because actually, I don't know if you remember, but way back in January, when Kobe, God rest his soul, passed away, the Blazers actually played the Lakers, and they actually beat them in the Staples Center. And Damian Lillard, he had 48 points in that game. So I thought it's going to be a similar scenario where, the Lakers are going to come out motivated, but the Blazers as well. It's going to be back and forth. The Blazers are going to win. It's going to be a tied series, but the Lakers will pull it out in 6 games. I did not expect it to get blown out like that. So, but credit to the Lakers, they got their act together and they took care of business.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and also the fact that, like, LeBron James in the first few games were just really, like, was kind of inconsistent, didn't really have his jumper going and all that kind of stuff. So he really picked it up. He really picked it up in the late part of that series, and he averaged, I think, around 28. I think he averaged around 28 points, and I think he had like a 38-point game. I don't know if it was game 4 or game 5, but I know it was one of those 2 games where he had over 35 points. So obviously, I want to before we move on to the next series, what does the Blazers need to do in this offseason? Do they need to pick somebody up? Do they need to start making moves? Do they just want to keep the team how it is, which I actually did from prior to the season prior to the season. They literally just left everything on the table and just kept this team as it is. So they keep doing that for this season? I wonder.
That's a good question, because the Blazers are in a really bad spot. Because if you look at their roster, they have a competitive roster that's good enough to compete in the Western Conference, but they're not good enough to be one of the top teams in the West. But on the other side, they don't have a bad enough roster to where they can tank for a top pick. So I think in terms of what they can do, I think they can probably make some trades and maybe see what they can pick up in the draft. But otherwise, in terms of who they can trade, it's tough to say. I guess they can trade Whiteside, although I wouldn't want them to trade Whiteside, because Whiteside actually played really well. The problem with him is that I could see them trading him over Nurkic, because Whiteside, his issue has always been his motor and how motivated he is to play on a game-to-game basis. And also, they do have Zach Collins, who will play over Whiteside anyway. So I guess trade Whiteside. I don't know. So in terms of like the whole trade Dame or trade CJ debacle, I don't think they should trade either guy. I think they complement each other really, really well. I think CJ has been a really good sidekick for Dame, especially if Dame is injured. Because let's not forget, Dame he's pretty injury prone on itself. And when Dame's injured, Terry Stotts has played CJ at the point guard, and CJ is actually really good as a point guard. So I think they should keep them there and complement each other. Nurkic, I like Nurkic as their center. He plays really hard. He's he's even though he's not he's your traditional big guy, he doesn't really have an outside shot. I really like Nurkic, doing the dirty work for them inside of scoring and getting boards. So I guess overall, in terms of what they can do, they can't really do much. I guess make some trades or just do whatever they can in the draft and see what they can do for next season.
All right, that sounds like a good take for me. So let's move right into the series. Next, we went to the fourth spot, which we put as the Celtics and the 76ers. Obviously, the big issue was Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid had to basically carry this team on his back, and he said it himself that he had to carry this team. And unfortunately, that didn't pan out to be. I mean, and give the 76ers a lot of credit for this season and with the amount of craziness that they had to go through throughout the entire season. And then Ben Simmons was doing pretty well in the bubble. And then after suffering that injury, now the team just basically collapsed. Now on the other hand, you also had Jason Tatum, who initially was thought to be very consistent coming in. He was really struggling. It was really struggling for the most part in the beginning halves of the playoffs, and also in coming into the bubble, but then really picked it up, and then with the complimentaries of obviously with Kemba Walker and Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown, there was just no way of stopping the Celtics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Celtics, they really played really well in this series. Honestly, I was shocked that it was a sweep. I thought that the Sixers could probably get a game or two off the Celtics, but again, I think obviously the Ben Simmons injury was huge. Now, believe it or not, I know a lot of people are picking are saying if Ben Simmons played this series, the Sixers would have beaten the Celtics. I'm of the opposite. I think even if Ben Simmons did play, the Celtics would have still won the series regardless. I think instead of 4 games, it would have been a 6 to 7 game series. But let's talk about the Celtics first. The Celtics, they seem to finally have everything figured out. Even though Hayward is unfortunately got injured, they pretty much have everything figured out. Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker, they are the main core of this team. They've been doing their job of carrying the offense, and also the team has really been playing well defensively, especially with Brad Wanamaker. They also have Daniel Tice, but yeah, the Celtics they did their job. And also Kemba Walker, he hit some really big shots for them, especially in the fourth quarter. Kemba hit some big shots along with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Now, in terms of the Sixers,
Wait, what can you really say, man? Like, I don't know. I mean, you had Joel Embiid, but then who else? I mean, obviously with maybe Tobias Harris, but again, who else?
Honestly, I think the Sixers, I mean, obviously we already know they fired Brett Brown. The Sixers, they need to do something. Just do something this offseason. They cannot go into next season with this exact same team. They just cannot. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to trade. Elton Brand already says he's not trading Simmons or Embiid, which I agree with. They should not. You do not trade your star point guard who you just signed to a max deal last offseason, or your star center who's going to be who hopefully will be the leader of this franchise for the next 5. I'm saying 5 years because we all know Embiid is injury prone. Al Horford. Honestly, I feel like Al Horford is looking like a waste of a contract for them. I don't think they're going to trade Al Horford, but they got to figure out what to do with him. Tobias Harris is good. He's not $180 million good, but I think they got to do something. Now, I did like the experiment with they had Shake Milton starting at point guard, and then they had Ben Simmons at the 4. The problem is that Milton was really inconsistent with his shooting, and in order for this experiment to work, where they put Milton in the starting lineup and they have Simmons at the 4, Milton's really going to have to improve his shooting for next season. So I think, in my opinion, I think the Sixers, they peaked. You know, they are what they are, and they need to make some decisions. Now, in terms of what they can do, they need to sign some quality bench guys that can really bolster their bench, because their bench was, in my opinion, their weakest link, because they had Matisse Thybulle, they had Furkan Korkmaz as their main guys off the bench. I believe they also had but yeah, you can't have your best guys off the bench being Matisse Thybulle, who he's a great defender, but he doesn't really do much outside of defense. I mean, he can occasionally shoot the three. Or Furkan Korkmaz, who I believe is the best shooter, the best shooter on this team, but because all he does is hit spot up threes, teams are gonna hone in on him anyway. He can't really do anything else. I think losing Jimmy Butler, and also losing Jimmy Butler, they lost Robert Covington as well. Really hurt them. Oh, also I forgot about Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson, he's really got to expand his game offensively as well, because he was also a guy that was really inconsistent for them. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I think Josh. I was gonna say that also. I even forgot that Josh Richardson was on this team. That's how really. I wouldn't say bad, but just like how really silent he was in this series. Like, he wasn't really doing too much. So that's why. So I agree. So definitely I agree with that. Even though Joel Embiid was putting up like 25, 30 points in this series, it wasn't enough. It was just not enough. So we'll move on right into, which is actually just completed just last night. Last night, the Rockets and the Thunder. Man, what a series to watch! Like, man, honestly, that, and then we're going to talk about the Nuggets and the Jazz later. Those two were just obviously the most competitive basketball I have ever seen in the playoff series in my entire life, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but honestly, let's talk about the Rockets Thunder first. In my opinion, the Rock. This is going to be surprising to a lot of people. The Rockets are the loser of the series. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you think about it, the Rockets should have won this series in 5 games. Let's break this down, right? They win the first 2 games. Then, game 3, I believe they got blown out in game 3. All right, whatever. It's still 2-1. Game 4, they lose in overtime when they should have easily won game 4. I believe in overtime they only scored 3 points. James Harden fouls out. They blow out the Thunder in game 5 with Westbrook. Westbrook comes back. They blow him out in game 5. And then in game 6 was basically like game 4. It was close down the stretch, and the Rockets should have won games. I believe they had a lead pretty late into the ball game, and then they just made some really dumb mistakes down the stretch that cost them game 6. Game 7, it took James Harden at making the best defensive player of his career. Yes, I'm going as far as say that, the best defensive player of his career, in order for them to win game 7. So if you think about it, they should have won this series in 5 games. Obviously, I gotta give credit where credit is due to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder, they balled out. They played really well. Chris Paul, I made a video on this as well. Chris Paul, you need to stop disrespecting him. He balled out. What's this guy's name? Luke Dort. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his full name. I know they call him Luke. Luke Dort. In my opinion, if he keeps this up, his shooting going into next season, I don't see how Andre Roberson has ever played for his team ever again. At least in my opinion. Luke Dort is the way better version of Andre Roberson. He's a much better defender in my opinion. Gallinari was okay, but he was kind of inconsistent. I don't know if they're gonna bring him back. Steven Adams, I love Steven Adams. He's one of my favorite. Not only my favorite player, just one of my favorite people in the NBA. He's such a genuine guy, but he plays his heart out for this team. In terms of scoring, in terms of game boards, and also even though he's a traditional center, he's such a nightmare matchup for so many teams just because of his size. and just the way he's really good at finishing around the basket. But in terms of the Rockets, honestly, like I'm really not encouraged by what I saw by James Harden. Harden, I mean, yeah, he was averaging 30 points per game, but he was doing it on terrible, I mean, absolutely terrible shooting splits in this series. James Harden did not shoot the ball well at all. Like, and even Russell Westbrook. I mean, Westbrook. Okay, he came back. He gave him a little bit of boost. But even Westbrook, in my opinion, he didn't really play as well as he could. Now, to be fair, he's come back from a quad injury, and quad injuries are pretty annoying to deal with, especially with a guy of Westbrook's play style. But just the Rockets, I don't know. Like, I don't see how unless Harden like figures out his shooting troubles, I don't see how they beat the. Well, I don't think they're gonna beat the Lakers anyway. But I don't see how their series the Lakers goes 6 games, in my opinion.
Yeah, because obviously from yeah, It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because when James Harden only scored 17 points in that game, and in game 7, and that was on still like terrible efficiency. He only made like 1 3 in that entire game. Like he even said he even said in the interview he played like S. Like he really didn't play that well. So, and obviously with the defensive play, that really saved the entire team in moving on to the next series. If Dort hit him and after getting that offensive rebound from getting blocked by James Harden, if he would have actually hit it Harden and actually went out of bounds, that would have been a much different story. Especially since that OKC had another chance of winning the game. Now I would say at the end of the game of Game 7, there had been multiple opportunities for the Thunder to actually get a shot up, but the only thing was why was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander inbounding the ball? Why would you put him other than like maybe have like Dennis Schroeder or maybe even Steven Adams inbounding the ball? Like why have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who has been really good at shooting the ball, and he could come up with clutch? Who actually came up with a clutch shot and winning Game 5 and forced Game 6. Why give Shai Gilgeous-Alexander the ball with 1.3 left on the clock for OKC and in the fourth quarter in Game 7? You'd rather have him shooting the ball than like what Steven Adams, who actually bobbled the ball and forced a turnover.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, from what I've seen, I think Westbrook, he said he actually recognized the play. Now, in terms of the play itself, I believe it was for Adams to set a screen for Gallinari and for Gallinari to curl for a 3. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that was the right play. I think they should have probably just gone for a 2. But it was hard because of where SGA was inbounding the ball anyway. Now, in terms of who should have been the inbounder, it should have been Adams, because obviously Adams is the tallest guy. Now I think what the play should have been is you have Adams inbound the ball, and then you maybe have Gallinari set a pick for Alexander, and then honestly you go for the lob. Now I know the lob is kind of a risky play, but I think Alexander has the athleticism where he can caught the ball and threw it down. So you think about it, you have 1.3 seconds left. That's not a lot of time, but I think that the Thunder, they just really messed it up for themselves. That was not a good play for them, and it ultimately cost them the series.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I hope my hope is that the Thunder can look back at the series and only think positive, because you have a tremendous amount of talent coming off. They weren't even supposed to make the playoffs this season, to be fair with you, or even let alone have this kind of record coming into the bubble. This team was technically supposed to be this team's odds of making it into the playoffs prior to coming into this 2019-2020 season was 0.2%. 0.2%. Can you believe that? Like, you had to trade away. You gave away Westbrook, who was your star Frank was technically your star point guard coming into the season, and now you trade away him to Houston and pick up Chris Paul. Yeah, let alone Chris Paul is a great player, but he's not as good as he used to be. But he still can shoot. He still has a good mid range. His shooting strokes are still really good. He can pass the ball like anyone, basically no one can in this league. He's one of the best passive point guards in this league. And you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been really been a star power for this team. Let alone with the defensive efforts of Steven Adams as well. And then the bench that they had with Dort and Dennis Schroeder being contention for Sixth Man of the Year. So this team really has some high hopes.
No, exactly. That's why I really hope that they keep Chris Paul for next season, because the Thunder, they have a lot of picks that they can use for the next few years they can use to build through the draft. And if they have their picks right, don't be surprised if they are a really dangerous team for next season. I think they need Chris Paul for his leadership. I like him and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the backcourt. I really hope that they keep Steven Adams, because I've seen some rumors that they should trade Steven Adams. No, I think you need Steven Adams. If you're gonna trade someone, if anything, trade Gallinari, because I don't think Gallinari is a good fit for this team, to be honest. But otherwise, I really hope that they keep Chris Paul. Yes, I know he's on a really huge contract, but I'm telling you, he's really the veteran leader that they need for this team. And he also brings a lot of mental toughness that a lot of the young guys on this team, they may not have developed yet. And also, I forgot Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder, I love the way he played in this series. I don't know if you noticed, but like Dennis Schroeder, he channeled his inner Patrick Beverly in terms of how he was just really getting under Harden and Westbrook's skin. Honestly, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was really, again, like, it's a playoff series. Any edge you can get is extremely important, especially against a team like the Houston Rockets, where they're projected to make it as far as the conference finals. So I think that, again, the Thunder, they did their job in terms of what they need to do this season. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do in the offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hopefully the Thunder can come back this season and be at where they were at this season, or maybe even better. Maybe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander even can have his first All-Star appearance with the way he's been improving as well. So let's go on to the second spot that we have before we move on to the obvious one that we mentioned with the Nuggets and the Jazz, in the Clippers and the Mavericks. Now, we all know about Luka Doncic and what he's been doing for this team. He's basically put this team on his back and throughout the entire season and I mean, this is only his second season, and he's already in MVP contention. He's already in MVP contention. So obviously, we know that. In retrospect, Giannis actually won the MVP for the season. But being as it may, Luka Doncic is basically one of the best young players in this generation right now for this league, and I hope nothing for the best for him. Even though he got injured, and he almost got intentionally injured by. I really quoted in emphasis quotes, intentionally injured by hurt by Marcus Morris. Like, it's insane. It's insane what the amount of scoring and the amount of leadership that Luka Doncic is putting onto this team.
Dude, Luka Doncic, he's not human. I'm calling. If you want to call me Skip Bayless for saying this, I'm gonna say this. Luka Doncic, he's the next he's the European Michael Jordan. Just like I'm saying this because just the top, you think about it. This guy, not only did he actually injure his ankle had an injured ankle since Game 2 of the series. Not only did Marcus Morris intentionally injure him not once but twice. Not only did not only did Marcus Morris, but Montrezl Harrell, they tried to punk him, and they tried to punk him into bowing out throughout the entire series. If you think about it, the Clippers, they were trying to bully Luka Doncic out of his comfort zone. He didn't let any of that affect him. He still dropped 30 points in every. I believe he scored 30 points in every game of the series. He was just balling out. He wasn't letting his ankle or the rest of the Clippers player affect him. He was just Luka Doncic. There's so many adjectives you can say about him. It's just amazing what this guy's like. I still remember when he hit the buzzer in Game 4. I was here screaming in my room. That was just absolutely insane. Like, this guy is just like a bit. Like I really said, when I made my awards video, I said it too. I think it's a shame because I think, in my opinion, Luka should have won Most Improved Player, but obviously congrats to Brandon Ingram. I think Luka was overqualified as well, but I think, in my opinion, if it's not for Giannis, Luka should win an MVP this decade. But the only way I see Luka win MVP this decade is if either Giannis is injured. Obviously, I don't want Giannis to get injured, or B, Luka has to have like an ungodly season. I mean, ungodly season. I mean, he's got to be averaging like 35 points. I don't know, like 11 rebounds and like 8 to 9 assists type of thing. Like,
I mean, obviously, he has to basically go like Westbrook. He has to average triple double. He won, and obviously we know with Westbrook, he actually won an MVP just averaging a triple double. So I think he might have to average a triple double and also average 30 points in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another thing I wanted to say was that people were saying that if Porzingis was held the entire series, the Mavericks would have beaten the Clippers. I disagree with that. I still think the Clippers would have beaten the Mavericks. I just think it would have gone the full 7 games because obviously in games 5 he got suspended for game 1. Game 1 could have gone either way, and obviously it was pretty back and forth series. This is like the last couple of games. Obviously game 5 was a blowout. Game 6 was Game 6 was a blowout as well. But I think if they had, part of it is because the Mavericks, they went through stretches where they really struggled to score the ball, especially with Doncic. So I think that the Clippers still could have beaten the series because they went honed in on Porzingis regardless.
Yeah, and it sucks to see the Mavericks go just like that. I mean, with the amount of transitions that they had to go through, you can expect nothing but the best for this team. So they still need some wiggle room. Obviously, I think one of the major downfalls also coming into the bubble as well is that they lost Dwight Powell due to an ACL injury back in the regular season. So that really tied some. Really had to tie some strings. So hopefully you have him back for a lot of defense in the paint, for a lot of defense and scoring in the paint. And you also have to get some more efficiency out of your bench players. Seth Curry for the most part was doing absolutely on God with his shooting. He was basically putting up numbers like his brother, almost like his brother was coming into this bubble. He was averaging around 40% from 3 throughout the playoffs and throughout the entire bubble. So he's up on the uprise. And if you get double digits out of him too, him alongside with Finney Smith, Dorian Finney-Smith, you have him with complementaries as well. And if you can also develop what's his name, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who, I mean, his shooting struggles is still like in the mix with his jump shot. He's still averaging under 30% from 3. But if you can develop him as well, he can be an upside for this team. So, but obviously, as we know, the Clippers on the other hand was just too dominant. Even with like Kawhi Leonard was going off for the most part, but the real struggle was playoff with our
Pandemic
play. When our friend group that we have back in the back when we have in our 2K group and all kind of stuff. We had playoff P just like bashing him like crazy because he wasn't doing well. He couldn't play. He couldn't play. Like PT he even said himself that he was dealing with anxiety and depression throughout the entire bubble and really wanted to help his team win. But with his personal stuff, he just couldn't pan out. But then with late in the series, he went off. He game 4 or 5, he went off for around 30 35 points. So that was a really big boost for him. So that was always the main issue for that team, and I think it was just Paul George just trying to be efficient.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was Game 5 because Game 5 that was when the Clippers pretty much just mollywopped them. But yeah, no, Paul George he's really gonna have to step up in this series against the Nuggets. They really need his shooting. I think this is gonna be this was a tough series for him, obviously because of his shin, but also because he did have to guard Luka and he did have to guard Hardaway. That's another thing I wanted to bring up as well. But in terms of Paul George, his bad offense was really affecting his defense as well, because part of the reason why the Mavs were so competitive with the Clippers because Paul George was just leaving shooters like Tim Hardaway and Trey Burke open for threes. For the Mavs, they were amazing three-point shooting team, and Paul George, he was so affected mentally by shooting. I remember there were times where he would leave Tim Hardaway open for a corner three. You wouldn't be able to stop Seth Curry or Trey Burke off the dribble. It's just little things like that were affecting the team as a whole. But if you're Doc Rivers, you can't just bench him and just because it's Paul George. He's an all-star, so you have to play him. So he's really gonna have to step up in the series against the Nuggets, because even though the Clippers blew out the Nuggets in Game 1, obviously players because the Nuggets had to play in Game 7. Well, I'm gonna expect this series to be really tough for him because he's gonna have to guard a Jamal Murray, a Jeremy Grant, who else do we have to guard? A Michael Porter. Those are 3 guys right there who are matchup nightmares for a lot of teams in the league if they get going offensively. So pandemic P, playoff P, whatever you want to call him, he better get his act together.
Yeah, for truth. I mean, and I also forgot to mention about Trey Burke. Did you see him in Game 1? He was lights out. Woo! He couldn't miss from 3. He could not miss from 3. He went 8 of 9 from 3 or 7 of 8 from 3 in that first game.
This is why I'm just I'm for those men I know, I'm a Knicks fan. Seeing Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway and Porzingis, obviously how they perform this series, it makes me feel some type of way. But obviously, I'm not gonna come up as a salty Knicks fan. But, it was great to see them play. Trey Burke, he's always, but there's another Trey Burke. He's had the potential. It's just especially when he was with the Knicks, he had some really great scoring games. With the Knicks, he had the potential. I think, obviously with the Mavericks, I know part of it's because of injuries. I know the Mavericks had to deal with a lot of injuries this year, but it was really great to see him, step out of his comfort zone finally, and really step up offensively for this team, especially because Doncic was injured pretty much the entire series. They need extra production from their backcourt, and they got that from Burke and also Hardaway as well. So I really hope that the Mavericks keep Trey Burke for next season and give him a more expanded role. He's proven that when you give him playing time, he can produce for you, especially on a consistent basis.
All right, and we want to keep you all up to date, so let's move on right into the final one, our top best series out of the first round of the bubble. And if it's not in your top one, then I don't know what the heck you're thinking, and because it is the Nuggets and the Utah Jazz, and back and forth with Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray was absolutely tearing it up on offense, for the most part of the series, averaging over 31 points per game in the entire for this entire series. And then Donovan Mitchell was just, really had his game, and also Rudy Gobert being on the defensive end and grabbing boards. You had Jokic, who's always been efficient. He's always been efficient double, and then just have really been one of the best obviously the best big passing big man in this entire league. So this series was just absolutely insane to watch. Let's hold off on Game 7 for right now, but I want to talk about like the entire series, series as a whole. What did you see out of the series, first of all?
Oh my god, it was watching Michael Jordan versus Michael Jordan. That's what Don Mitchell versus Jamal Murray was like. If you think about it, first of all, Jamal Murray had a 3 games 4 through 6. That stretch I think I forgot what the exact numbers were in terms of breaking it down, but I know that Jamal Murray, like his scoring from games 4 to 6, that was something that's only been done, I believe, by Allen Iverson, Alex, and Michael Jordan. So in terms of just how he performed this series was just insane. Donovan Mitchell, like he's another player where it's it was really great to see his growth so quickly. Like I didn't really see Donovan Mitchell how he played in college back in Louisville, but like I didn't expect him to be this good this quick. Like think about Donovan Mitchell, he made the playoffs only in his second year in the league 2 years ago, back in 2018 when he upset the Thunder, and just to see how he's progressed, to now, like this man is really in his bag, and he's really just upped this game. It's really nice to see. And personally, I was also rooting for Donovan Mitchell because for those who may not know, I'm a Mets fan, and Donovan Mitchell's dad actually works for New York Mets. So personally, I was rooting for Donovan Mitchell, but like just Jamal Murray, man, it's just the way Jamal Murray, his performance, not only in game 1, obviously game 1 was great, but just in games 4, it was not only was it amazing, but it was inspirational. Just the way this guy, think about it, Jamal Murray's 23 years old, just the way he refused, he absolutely refused to let the Nuggets lose the 6. Think about it. They were down 3-1. They lost. Now they were down 3-1. They lost 3 straight games. They won game 1, and they got blown out in game 2 and game 3, and they barely lost game 4. They could have easily mailed it in and be like, look, guys, we're down 3-1. They're obviously the better team. We have no chance. But just the way this man just refused to let the Nuggets lose, and he came back and he led them to the series. It was really inspirational to see. But obviously, props about Mitchell, but like Jamal Murray, he had a crazy series. That was really great to see.
All right, 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll just keep talking. In terms of Donovan Mitchell as well, he had a great series, but obviously I remember after game 6, I remember him slamming down the exercise bike, and I just had to feel for him because I remember after game 4, he hit that step back 3-pointer over Paul Millsap, and he said, I want this. I'm not gonna say the last word, but he said, I want this. And I actually thought that they were actually gonna end up playing it out in 5 games, or at least win the series. So obviously, I really feel for Don Mitchell that they couldn't pull it out in the end.
I know. Did you see the way he reacted? Okay, so let's go right into Game 7, because first of all, a very, very defensive game, because that game was low scored. The game was 80 to 78.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was going on? But when I watched, I didn't tune into. I will say right now, I didn't tune into the game until the third quarter. But the third quarter was like in the 60s. I'm like, that's almost like second quarter. That's like second quarter type of score. I'm like, what? Why was this game so low? And then I'm seeing huge defensive plays, going offensive ends, and then just no one able to score. They were just terrible shooting strokes from both sides of the court. Just couldn't make a shot. No one could make a shot. And then also the fact that there was a bunch of defensive plays. Have you seen the block from Rudy Gobert in that fourth quarter? My God. I couldn't believe that if I would have saw it in our replay. The guy went up and grabbed over. I think he had 16 or 17 rebounds for that entire game, and then just the amount of defensive plays that Rudy Gobert was making. That, and also the fact that Rudy Gobert made an and one from
one hand
with one hand and palming the ball, especially up on Jokic on an and one. That was insane to watch. So. Obviously, as we're fanboying this like crazy because this is one of the best. That was probably the highlight game of the first round. Not only because it was low scoring, but Mike Conley had the clearest shot of making that 3-point shot, being as it made that the team was out of timeouts. Coming up coming almost from three-quarter Steph Curry range. And almost knocking down that three. That shot was just in and out. And the way Donovan Mitchell reacted, man, if Mike Conley would have made that three, that would have been ecstatic.
Yeah, I actually just thought about this just now. Well, I want to ask you this: Did this game give you Warriors Cavs Game 7 vibes? The reason why I'm saying that is because obviously it's the first round. It's the first round of a playoff series. So I'm not saying it has the same magnitude in terms of Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but in your opinion, does this game give you kind of Cleveland Warriors, Cavs Warriors vibes, in terms of because obviously that game was pretty much going the same way. Whereas it was a high scoring first half, and the second half the pace really slowed down. It was really ugly. It was really grinding out. There were big defensive plays on either end. Obviously, LeBron had the block on Andre Iguodala, and then obviously, in this year, you had Gobert. He had the big block as well.
I mean, that's a good question because you're talking about the one with Kyrie Irving hitting the big three, right? And the guys won that one. Okay, so. Yeah, I think so. I believe that. But the only thing was that it was and the only big difference was that it wasn't the end of the that Kyrie hit that Kyrie was able to hit that with I think a full shot clock still available, and then the Warriors couldn't hit a shot for their life at the end of that game. So that's the reason why that the Cavs won that series or won the championship that series. So yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I also agree with the fact that the way that the game was playing, especially in that fourth quarter, for the Nuggets and the Jazz, was just insane. The amount of clutch shots that both teams were making, especially with what's his name, Jamal Murray hitting two major layups and then also a bank shot off the glass, and then at the end of the game. It was really clutch. It was really clutch for that team. And then, Donovan Mitchell was trying to carry that team with the amount of scoring that he was doing for that entire game. I think he won 22 points in that game. So, it was insane. It was just downright insane.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was seeing. Yeah, you said Jamal Murray. He made those backdoor layups. Now, and also another thing I just thought of too. I believe the Nuggets, they went 6 minutes without scoring. So without scoring a point, so that's part of the reason why the Jazz really get back in the game as well. Because actually, for those who may not have watched at least the entire game, like us, both of us, we only watched the second half. The Nuggets were up. They had 50 points at halftime. I believe they were up 50-36 at halftime. So the Nuggets were well on their way to blowing out the Jazz in this series. And then the Jazz, they got their act there and they shut down the Nuggets in the third quarter, in the early part of the fourth quarter as well. Where it was late back and forth. They actually did a good job of honing in on Murray this time. Because they honed in on Murray, that gave Jokic a free roam to score 30 points. Because Jokic had a really quiet 30 points. I didn't realize he had that much until after the game. I was like, oh shoot, Jokic had 30 points. So yeah, no, that was really good to see. And also he had the game where I was really nice shot. So, but this great series overall. Very definitely memorable series.
Yeah, for sure. And then I really feel for, obviously, as we said before, we really feel it for the Jazz. Donovan Mitchell put his heart out, and it's when coming off of that game, he was so emotional. But I think not only he really put his heart out, but I think for next season is only going to be a major step up. Obviously, as we know, with the major beef that he had with Rudy Gobert, that has basically been squashed. If you've seen Game 7, you can see the amount of emotion that he was making, especially when Gobert was making the shots. He was going ecstatic. He was really being energized. He really helped the team. He really helped the team just energize the team as much as he could. Really brought the enthusiasm. So I really hope that the Jazz can step up again for this season. So let's go right into what's happening right now, which is obviously the semifinal round. So let's go around the horn. Go right into the Eastern Conference with the Bucks and the Heat. Now, obviously we know the Heat right now are in control as of now, which is obviously right now kind of surprising, being as a made that. Let me just check that that. Although game two was basically back and forth, the Heat barely won the game two in 116 or 114, but the Bucks had major chances of actually winning that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's been a surprising series so far. The Heat have won both games. Obviously, Jay Butler came up big in game one with 40 points, and part of it is because he was attacking the basket as well. And he had the game winning free throws in game two, in a game in which he struggled a lot in. But the Heat, they've shown that they have the Bucks number in this series. Now, they're not really doing so much for their shooting. Surprisingly, they're beating the Bucks at their own game of attacking the paint. Because, like I said, the Bucks, they pack the paint. They don't really like to give up easy buckets in the paint. The problem is that Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo have been attacking the paint like crazy for them on basically every possession. And then you have Goran Dragic, who's really elusive off the dribble. He can pretty much score from everywhere. In my opinion, Goran Dragic, he's a 3-level scorer. He can shoot from anywhere. And then you have Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, the two young guards who've been stepping up with their shooting in this series as well. Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder's been a good 3-and-D guy for them. Hitting big threes and playing good defense. Now, one thing that's going to be interesting moving forward in this series though is that Andre Iguodala had a really bad looking ankle injury near the end of game two. I don't think there's any updates on whether he'll be ready for game three or how or assess for the rest of the series. But obviously, he's a big part of their bench unit. So, and also just in terms of the Bucks, Giannis again, Giannis just doesn't. It's the same issue where he doesn't know how to deal with the wall, and also they need production from the rest of the roster, especially Middleton. Middleton hit some big shots in game two, but Middleton's got to be really consistent, throughout the duration of the game. He can't just hit occasional big shots and then he goes quiet for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I know. And then I think Chris Middleton can definitely step it up. He has a really good jumper, and his 3-point shooting is what actually got him to an all-star appearance for the season. But what I will say about that series, and I will question you on this. Did you agree with the foul call on Jimmy Butler before he sealed the deal?
Yes. If you see Giannis touched them on the side as he was falling down, that's clearly a foul. That was the correct call. Again, that's why I'm just Giannis. I don't know what's going on with him. If you look at it, his stats are what you expect from him. But then for Giannis, it's a mental game. That's probably what it is. He's making he's making too many mental mistakes that are costing the team down the stretch, or it causes them, in close games like this. Whether it's throughout the bubble in the scene round where he's consistently getting the foul trouble, or in game one. Game one, he only had 12 shots. Then in game two, he really cost him the game with the foul at the end there. Giannis, he really, I understand that he's still young, he still needs to develop his game, but I'm sorry, but if you're the reigning MVP and you're arguably the best player in the league, then you gotta rise above that. That's just my opinion. So hopefully he gets his act together.
Yeah, for sure. And now the series is now 2-0. So the next game will be today. Will actually be today. We're recording this on Friday. Today on Friday. Tonight at 6:30 will be game 3 for this series. So will the Heat step up, or will the Bucks, or will the Giannis find a way to win for this team? Only time can tell. So let's go with the other Eastern Conference matchup in the Celtics and the Raptors. Now, boy, did the Raptors get away in the teeth of the skin in game 3. OG Anunoby with the clutchest shot he'll probably ever hit in his career so far, from way across on the corner, where Kyle Lowry had to basically inbound the ball up for a 7'7" guy in Taco Fall. How difficult is that, to be honest with you? To also have 0.5 on the clock with your best passer on the team, with Kyle Lowry, facing with a big frame of Taco Fall, be able to throw it all the way across court, all the way to the corner where OG Anunoby was wide open to hit that 3.
Yeah, that actually reminded me. This is a really random game, but do you remember early in the season? I believe it was in November when the Kings played the Rockets, and I believe it was
Bielitsa who hit that long 3 right from there. Oh my god, yeah, now I do.
Yeah, no, it was pretty similar in that scenario, because I think that he had a second to shoot the ball as well. So yeah, it was pretty similar to that. But yeah, I know that was the degree of difficulty of that. First of all, I don't know what, think about it, we have it back-to-back nights now, because game 7 Rockets Thunder, for the Thunder, they had I forgot who they had inbound the ball for them in game 7, but then for the Raptors they had Kyle Lowry. I don't know why teams don't just have the big guy inbound the ball, if he's the biggest guy, or at least one of the biggest guys. But obviously it worked out for the Raptors. But Matt, you and I have talked about this. I found it really hard to believe that the Celtics could beat the Raptors three games in a row, but they came in OG Anunoby 3-pointer away from being up 3-0 on the defending champions. So obviously this goes to show that the Celtics, they are legit. They are for real this year. But obviously props to the Raptors. OG Anunoby in a way saved their season, and now they have now they're back in this, and they can tie up in game 4.
Yeah, we hear, and you said that they would, and we were talking about, and we were actually having conversations about this off camera, and we were saying that, and John said that he would not be surprised if the Raptors win these next 2 games, and they might go, and it goes to game 5, which I'm not surprised about that either. The Raptors have a really good team. From starting lineup to the bench, and the fact that they have, and the fact that with their playoff history obviously being in the picture as well, being the reigning champions, the amount of transitions that they went through this season was absolutely tremendous, and the way they stacked themselves up. Brad VanVleet has stepped up this season. Serge Ibaka has stepped up. Pascal Siakam is taking that big role after Kawhi Leonard decided to go to the Clippers, and with all that being said, it wouldn't be surprised if they take this series to these 6 or 7 games. But that's only if they can beat the Celtics tomorrow. which is Saturday. And that only time can tell. It's either that or if the Celtics win on Saturday, if they go up 3-1, there's hardly any chances. I mean, unless the Celtics pull a Jazz, which I highly doubt they would do, because they're too much of a better team than the Jazz, I would say, in my opinion. They have too much of a stacked team to do that, to be honest with you, to blow a 3-1 lead, to throw a 3-1 series like that.
No, I think if the Celtics win Game 4, they're winning the series. I have no doubt about that. That's for sure. I don't see them blowing a 3-1. No way.
Yeah, I believe that too. And if the Celtics would have won this game and OG Anunoby would have missed that 3, there's no way they could win. They win 4 games straight. There's only been we were talking about this off camera, and John didn't mention this. There's only been two teams in the sports world that have actually won 4 straight games. 4 straight games after being down 3-0. What were they?
It was the unfortunate. I imagine this will bring up painful memories to it. It was the Red Sox against the Yankees back in 2006, and then it happened in hockey. It was either 2018 or 2017. It was the San Jose Sharks. They came back against I forget who, but I know it was the San Jose Sharks. They did it a couple of years ago. I'm forgetting, but yeah, it hasn't even happened in basketball, and obviously we know why. Basketball, at least in baseball and hockey, like they're completely 2 different sports, but it's realistic can happen. Basketball, it's next to impossible to do because the talent level is so different from baseball and hockey.
Yeah, and also the fact that if you're trying to stretch to get into Game 7, you have to play your heart. You have to literally bleed sweat and tears to make it to Game 7. If you want to even, first of all, win 3 straight games is obviously tough in the playoffs, and then try to force a Game 7 in the mix. Man, that's just ugh.
No, yeah, absolutely. That's why I like the Nuggets and Jazz. That was just insane. That's why I said the Nuggets, they could have easily nailed it in and lose that series. So you have to pretty much play perfect basketball for 4 straight games, which in the playoff series it's just almost impossible, especially in the sport of basketball.
Yeah, and speaking about the Nuggets, that's what we're gonna talk about next with the Nuggets and the Clippers. So now here's the problem. Now the Nuggets only had 1 day's of rest, with the Clippers having a bunch of rest waiting for the series to end. The Nuggets only have one game of rest, and they completely blew out the Nuggets in 97-120. They couldn't compete. They just couldn't compete because it was coming off of a huge big battle against the Jazz.
Yeah, and no, and that's my thing. I know I praised Adam Silver way back in the beginning of this podcast, but one criticism I do have to give, and that I'm not just want to just for now, but they've done it in the past before, is that I wish they would wait until all the first round series are done before they start the next round. I just don't get why the league is so impatient on starting the second round series right away. Because this happened way back in 2013 when the Knicks played the Celtics. The Knicks went up 3 on the Celtics. Then they lost back-to-back games, and they beat the Celtics in Game 6. And then they only had 1 day of rest between Game 6 against the Celtics and Game 1 against the Pacers in the next round, and they ended up losing Game 1. So it was a pretty similar scenario to this, where the Nuggets are coming off a absolutely draining series against the Jazz, where they had where their season was on the line for 3 straight games, and then you only get 1 day of rest, between that series and playing a team which is some analysts have winning the championship this year. It's just not fair. in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with that, and I agree with that too, because like, I and even Jamal Murray said this when he was on interview with Scott Van Pelt. He was really surprised that he only had 1 day of rest. He thought he had like at least 2 days of rest, before facing the Clippers. And now they only have 1 day of rest. That completely just threw him off. And now you see from as you can see from game 1, they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't seem to make any offensive plays. They just struggled throughout the entire game and just couldn't make anything out of it. So game 2 will actually be tomorrow on Saturday, September 5th. And hopefully the Nuggets can step up. It's either that or the Clippers are going to be taking the series.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not even counting game 1. For me, game 2 is the real game 1, because obviously, I'm not even the Nuggets. Like, they had no chance of winning game 1. Now, I will give them props for it, because I know it was close to the first quarter and a half, and the Clippers just took over. But obviously, I'm not counting game 1. Now, obviously, they need to win game 2, because if they lose game 2 and they go down 2-0, obviously, I don't know about you, but I think it's a GG from there for the Nuggets.
No, completely, 100% agree with you on that one. So, hopefully the shooting can come back, and Jamal Murray and Jokic can step up and can carry this team. So with that being said, let's go on to the final one before we end it here in the final series of the Rockets and the Lakers. And obviously game 1 will be Saturday. It will be Saturday as well, because actually no, not Saturday. Excuse me. Tonight at 9:00 after the Bucks and Heat game. So, what's gonna be your big prediction for this series? Now that the Rockets have won 7 games straight, went to game 7, and basically play their hearts out. Now, however, they are still sticking with their 5-out offense. Compare that to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. How would this team plan out to the Lakers who've been kind of consistent, basically kind of consistent for the playoffs, but that was late against in that Blazers series. But then again, they're a better defensive team than the Thunder.
Yeah, no, I think so. In terms of my prediction, I'm going with the Lakers in 6. I'm going with 6, because I think that they have their act together now. I think they pretty much figured out whatever issues were plaguing them in terms of the bubble and in the early part of the series against the Blazers. And they've also had a lot of time to rest. And obviously, we all know how LeBron, he performs really well when he has a long playoff. So I expect them to win game 1. But then I think after game 1, that's when I think the series games 2 to be actually competitive and back and forth series. Now, in terms of what I'm looking for, the Rockets, they're definitely going to run their 5-out small ball offense. But the problem is that they're facing the Lakers, who are a really big team. They're going to rely on their size and their athleticism. The Rockets are going to really have to make their threes if they want to have a chance in this series. James Harden's got to really select the type of threes he takes, because the Lakers not only have a lot of size and athleticism, but they're really good at getting out in transition as well. Westbrook's gonna have a tough time, I think, attacking the defense, but I think if he's able to, maybe do more of a drive and kick, and try and drive and just attack the bigs such as JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, I think he'll be good for him to save in his energy for later in the game.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and then in terms of the Lakers themselves, obviously, I think LeBron and AD, I think they're gonna dominate in this series. But obviously, the rest of the Lakers are gonna step up, especially defensively, in order to shut down the Rockets shooters.
So here's a funny stat for you. Here's a funny or a funny history lesson for you. The last time that Westbrook has faced LeBron in the playoffs was back in 2012 and 2013 when they went in that playoff series in game a playoff series with OKC. That is the last time that Westbrook has faced LeBron. So I'm wondering about that matchup, with LeBron and Westbrook.
I remember that series too. That was only because I became an NBA fan in 2010. That was the NBA Finals in 2012. I remember that series very well because in Game 4, I think Westbrook had a really dumb turnover that cost them Game 4. So for like the younger audience who may not be watching the NBA way back then, the Thunder won Game 1 and then the Heat won 4 straight. Now Game 2, now the first 2 games were close. I think Game 3 the Heat blew them out. Game 4 was Game 4. Game 4 was back and forth. And then, like I said, Westbrook had a really dumb turnover that cost them Game 4, and ultimately cost them the series. Now, in terms of current day now, Westbrook against LeBron, I don't expect them to guard each other, obviously, but I think, like I said, I really hope that Westbrook doesn't try and just take over the game or like pressing. Like I said, he's gonna a really tough time constantly tackling the bigs of the Lakers on a consistent basis. He's really gonna have to try and just drive and kick. Driving kick it's gonna be the key to not only conserve his energy, but it's gonna be better for the team overall just because he commands so much attention from the defense. Now in terms of LeBron, I imagine they're gonna have PJ Tucker and Robert Covington guard LeBron. Now they're not gonna completely shut down LeBron. LeBron's gonna still average 25 and 9 and 9, let's just say. But if you can use PJ Tucker and Robert Covington to at least slow him down over the course of the game, so in the fourth quarter, LeBron will be pretty much drained. That could really help the Rockets long term. So it's gonna be interesting to see how those two, especially, play individually in this series.
Absolutely. So hopefully, with the NBA, with that NBA back, I mean, obviously we want to see. Obviously, the first round was insane to watch, and now the playoff series is really kicking in. So let's end it off here for John. I appreciate you being here for today. The Sergeant's Lab obviously it has been expanding for the past few months ever since the pandemic has been starting. You guys can check me out. Check me out here in the Sergeant's Lab. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to subscribe here. Give a like and see. And what are your predictions? What are your thoughts about the NBA playoffs? What are your predictions for this semifinals round as well? Because it's been really kicking, and then the players are really starting here. And we want to know who is going to win your 2020 NBA champions for this season. So again, check me out here on the Sergeant's Lab. Links will be in the description for both Twitter and Instagram. You can check me out at the Sergeant's Lab on Twitter and SGT Matt George 22 on Instagram, and also the Sergeant's Lab will be in the link in the description for Twitch, which we actually be starting very soon today on Friday. We're having another we're playing Jackbox, which we're having another Jackbox stream, and you can check out also, and John, I'll let you do yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter. That's JML5798, and then subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, where I also talk about other basketball content that I think interests me. That's DATAMIKE. That's DATAMIKE. DATAMIKE. That's one word and in all caps. And that's also my Twitch channel as well. Twitch.tv/DATAMIKE. Make sure you follow me over there. Turn on notifications, where I also play video games as well. Just check out my content. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And for John, he's recently been doing the Walking Dead series. He just finished the season 1, and now he's on to season 2. And he will be continuing that series. He's been also doing the Halo Wars campaign as well. He actually completed a 4-hour run trying to complete a 5-hour run to complete 4 missions was really insane to watch, especially towards the end with one of the missions that he really had to really keep trying, and thank God he actually completed it at the end of the stream. So make sure to give him a follow. We really want to try to get our channels going as well. and obviously our main goal is to become an affiliate so we can actually spread the word out for you guys and create as much content for you guys as well. For me, obviously, obviously with my Jackbox music and gaming streams, I'm continuing the Ori of the Wisps on Ori and the Will of the Wisps on Tuesday. And that'll be at 2 p.m. 2 to 5. And John will have his stream there. His schedule is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mine is Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Sunday will be my music streams where I'll be playing guitar, and also be singing right here, straight up, a live music concert for you guys. So let me know also in the comments of what songs you guys would like to hear in the next music concert. Next music concert will actually be this Sunday. I will let you guys know what time it'll be as well, because I'm actually going back because actually I started work at the Museum of Natural History just back yesterday, my first day back. So it was good to see, good to see that everything is basically going back to normal. So John, thank you for being here again in the Sergeant's Lab once again. Great to be back.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. It's great to be back. Had some good content. We did have a really good show today, and make sure you guys check it out. Check out on social media and catch us on the next episode.
Yes, sir. All right. This is the Sergeant's Lab signing off. Have a good day, everyone, and be safe.
Signing off.